The era of low energy prices is over. The United States has enjoyed low energy prices, oil, natural gas, electricity, for a long, long time. But I would tie this back again to what's happening in the world economy. China and India and the double-digit growth they're seeing is driving commodity prices, energy commodities especially, but all sorts of commodities, higher and higher.
People are paying higher prices for gasoline to heat their homes. If you want to travel somewhere, you pay higher prices. Higher energy prices feeds through into higher prices of plastics, for example. So it just feeds through the entire chain of production in a lot of areas. So the most immediate effect is a reduction in purchasing power of consumers.
We're really in uncharted waters. Once before in 74, 75, we had some rapid increases in steel, but as I said, they've quadrupled. And we've never seen anything like this. It's really based on a demand-driven set of increases as opposed to supply-driven.
A lot of it started in the 04-05 time period, and what everybody thought was going to be a temporary spike ended up being not a temporary spike. We set one plateau, and then what's happened is we set like another plateau, and it seems like it's going to be there for quite a while.
Our costs have gone up in a couple items, especially, once again, fuel cost, insurance cost, even litigation cost, where, unfortunately, our commodity pricing is down quite a bit in our industry because of the housing situation. So there is an imbalance at this particular time.
The price of plastic really didn't go up much at all, say for 5-6 years, and then of course it started going up about 3 years ago. Since then it has doubled, and now it's going up another 20-30% after the doubling. So, but now that doesn't exactly trace oil because oil has tripled in price.
We certainly hope that these are not short-term price increases because, as I say, the only way they are short-term is if we go into a recession. So I think most businesses need to look at the fact that we are reaching a new plateau for food prices.
A lot of firms operate in a global market, so they can't automatically increase their prices if they're in a very competitive market. And some of these firms may be foreign firms and they may be domestic firms, so if they increase their price and another more efficient firm does not, then they're at a competitive disadvantage. So firms have to take all of these factors into consideration.
We import a lot of steel product, even though we're in the lumber industry, but all of our fasteners and steel studs and plates and on and on. And this in manufacturing now seems to be the vast majority seems to be being done in the Asian Rim. And we've lost a lot of manufacturing jobs locally, and now that is hit there and they're coming on the world scene and maybe competing in the world scene on human rights and everything that goes with that, they've raised prices.
Weak dollar certainly is impacting all North American business. It's keeping imports out, and then the rise of China and India has dramatically helped the increase in steel costs because there's now a higher global demand for iron ore and scrap metal and coking coal and all the elements that go into making alloys for steel.
So it's really the globalization that's really affecting this commodity increased cost.
We don't have as much competition in the U.S. anymore as we do have worldwide. So that has been a big factor, but now because the Chinese are using so much of the raw materials, their costs are going up too, and so it's starting to level the playing field.
I don't think economies of scale in the U.S. market is something that we can play to a greater extent. So therefore we are looking much more around the world to see how we can look at sourcing in Russia and the Ukraine. If the prices of grains in the U.S. go up higher than they are going up in the Ukraine or in Brazil and in Argentina, then we need to use these markets to source for our markets.
There will be a major shift away from carbon fuels in the United States because of concerns about climate change, which is caused by burning carbon-based fuels, which produces carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas. So we'll see more nuclear, we'll see more renewables, we'll see less coal, and we'll still see a lot of natural gas development.
I think firms more often, one, they try to offset these costs through productivity enhancements, whether reducing inefficiencies, or they try to pass along higher prices to consumers. Now, obviously, that works against some of the things the Fed is trying to accomplish and trying to limit some of these price increases.
As a manufacturer, we can't always pass all the costs on to our customers. So therefore, we have to innovate, either redesign the product, retool it, do different things, and of course you cut some margin, but you can only cut margins so much. The percentages of the increases have been so much that you can't absorb all of those.
Well, on the bridge side, we're losing business to concrete structures. Some of that happens in building work too that can be redesigned, but in the pipeline business there is no substitute material, so the pipeline companies are having to eat the cost.
As we curtail back production in the United States and exploration in the United States and logging or mining or anything in the United States, as we import these from outside the United States, that affects us. And as outside sources control more and more of our economy by being our main suppliers and sometimes the only supplier, I just wonder how vulnerable we'll be to price escalations that we really have no control on.
Over the future, I think we can expect to continue to see higher prices of energy than we saw in the 1990s, higher prices of food than we saw in the 1990s, and we need to get used to these higher prices. Whether they're exactly at today's level or slightly below is something the marketplace will figure out.
There will be a great deal of political pressure. In fact, we've already seen a great deal of political pressure to keep our rates down, keep our rates low. For the consumer, the impact is we will see steadily increasing electric prices for a long time into the future.
Plastic is only one of the petrochemicals. You've got solvents, you've got carpet, everything, I mean, almost that you can think of, that you can touch, somewhere is a petrochemical, and that's going to have a big effect on all of our lives and costs as we go forward.
It has been estimated that between the year 2000 and 2050, the world needs to double its production of food. We need not only to double the production of food, we need to do this on an ever decreasing amount of agricultural land.
We don't believe it's a spike. We think that there has really been a change in business, and that for the future, as long as there's going to be this continued growth outside the United States and this demand on commodities, what's going to happen is everything that you buy is going to go up in price, and that's good news and bad news, really. It's good news if you can pass your cost increase on in price. It's bad news if you can't.
You know, you pick up the papers, it's tough to be an optimist right now. It's really quite unsurprising in the sense that the U.S. economy has been very resilient in the face of a significant number of shocks, what economists call shocks, bad things, you know, September 11th, corporate accounting scandals related to Enron or whatever, war, you know. So we've done pretty well. Now we have the housing boom and bust and the financial difficulties in the markets, and you know the economy's not doing great, but it's still not declining like a lot of people think it is. And in fact, you take out housing, and we're still about 3% growth, which is pretty good.